What is going on, Jay Bears? Welcome back to the Jay by the Bay podcast. I'm Andrew J, and I'm pleased to present you episode 7. Today, I'm going to be covering the AFC Conference. Basically, I'm just going to be going through all 16 teams, where I think that the teams are looking good, who's looking bad, just where I think they end up as far as record, if they're in a rebuild, playoff bound, if they're legit Super Bowl contenders. But as always, please hit that subscribe button if you enjoy these podcasts. You can also check out all my content on Instagram at J by the Bay. But as always, football news, football conversations, football year round. But without further ado, let's get into it. To start things off, let's go to the AFC North. I got the Baltimore Ravens. I think Baltimore wins the division despite it being first year that they have a guy not named John Harbaugh. In 18 seasons leading the way. This is one of the deepest and most complete rosters in all of football right now. They are built to contend for a Super Bowl. Lamar Jackson, I think he has a bounce back season despite going 6-7 last year. He's still one of the league's most, dynamic quarterbacks. An MVP level season wouldn't surprise me. Derrick Henry is still a top 10 back. No matter do you like him or not, I think he's still playing at a high level. Even at this stage, defenses still have to account for him, every single snap. Pairing him with Lamar Jackson, as always, Baltimore's rushing attack, it's just nearly impossible to defend. But, yeah, Baltimore, they've always seemed to, they always seem to rebuild their roster every single season, next man up mentality. At offensive line, Baltimore had some departures along the offensive line, but I think they did an excellent job replacing them. Tyler Linderbaum takes the money, goes to Las Vegas, but they drafted Oliver Vega, Ioane, and I absolutely love that selection. Arguably my favorite pick in the whole entire draft. They also, they added John Simpson and Ethan Posich via free agency. That gives them the nice mix of young upside and proven veteran talent. For the first time in a long time, Ronnie Stanley had back-to-back healthy seasons. He could be one of the NFL's best offensive tackles if he can just stay healthy. Roger Rosengarten on the opposite side at right tackle, he's established himself as a reliable right tackle. But Baltimore continues to do a great job, rebuilding along that line. On the defensive side of things, defensive line, I like what they're doing, rebuilding that defensive line. Trey Hendrickson, immediately upgrades the pass rush. Zion Young, who they took in the second round, he adds another young piece to develop there. The secondary, this secondary is loaded. Kyle Hamilton, Marlon Humphrey, Nate Wiggins, Malachi Starks, one of the best secondaries in all of football. Wiggins took a huge step last season. I think he's becoming one of the better young cornerbacks in the league. Kyle Hamilton, best safety in all of football right now. I say it all the time. I think it's crazy that Baltimore got him at number 14 back in the 2022 draft. But that's the same kind of value I think they got in Ioane this year. But final thoughts, Super Bowl caliber roster. I just don't think they quite get over that hump. I do think they're the AFC North champs with a 12-5 record this year, but I think they lose in the divisional round and fall short of the AFC Championship. Going over to the Cincinnati Bengals, I think Cincinnati gets back to the playoffs this year. It all comes down to one player, though, that being Joe Burrow. But can he stay healthy? If Cincinnati, if he can, Cincinnati is dangerous. That's really the biggest question, though, if Joe Burrow can stay healthy. Jamar Chase, Jamar Chase and T. Higgins, still a top 5 receiving duo, if not the best, in my opinion. They make life so much easier for Joe Burrow. Chase Brown nearly became, in the running game, Chase Brown nearly became one of the, a top 10 running back. Samaje Perine is also, he's become a better third down, back in football. Nice balance in the backfield, though. Offensive line, over recent years, it's been abysmal, but quietly it's becoming, a better offensive line. It's becoming much better. Orlando Brown Jr., a lot of money invested in him, but they needed some reliability, protecting Burrow. Amarius Mims, first round pick 2 seasons ago. He's getting there. Dylan Fairchild, who was a third round pick last year, I think they might have, found a gem in him. But much improved from what they've, had over the years. Going to the defensive side of things, obviously losing Trey Hendrickson hurts, but that contract situation, I think, was becoming a distraction for them. Also lost Joseph Oshai on the outside. I like how they responded, though. Dexter Lawrence, They gave up a first-round pick to the Giants for him, but improves that defensive line. I mean, I'm not saying he's Trey Hendrickson. I mean, that's comparing apples to oranges. But, Boya Mafe and Jonathan Allen were also added via free agency. Cassius Howell was added in the second round. Veteran experience with some upside, with also some young talent coming in. Do I dare say they're actually better, as a defensive line unit than last year, even without Hendrickson? Maybe. But secondary, this unit desperately needed some help. They signed Brian Cook from the Chiefs, and then they also brought in Kyle Duggar. DeCarlo Davis selected in the third round. I thought this was an incredible value pick there. But I think this secondary will be noticeably better. Well, final thoughts. For a healthy Burrow, I think they're a playoff team. But at the end of the day, I think they're 10-7. I think they get a wild card bid, but I think they ultimately lose in the wild card round. Going to the Pittsburgh Steelers, I don't think Pittsburgh's rebuilding. I just don't think they're quite good enough. New head coach Mike McCarthy. I think him taking over from Mike Tomlin, and Tomlin. I think it was just his time. But Mike McCarthy, I think this is where he should be. Pittsburgh, born and bred. At quarterback, Aaron Rodgers gives him stability for now. Long term, though, I mean, he's not the answer. The future. Maybe it's Will Howard. Maybe it's Drew Aller, who they took in the third round this year, who I really did like. I thought that was a low risk, high reward situation there. Or maybe, maybe the future quarterback's not even on the roster. I don't know. But for now, it's Rodgers. Running back, I loved adding Rico Dowdle, who's now coming back off of back-to-back 1,000-yard seasons. And he's a good receiving back out of the backfield. Great compliment to Jaylen Warren. A receiver, huge improvement here. DK Metcalf is still the clear-cut number one weapon for Rodgers. Michael Pittman Jr., phenomenal addition, who they just gave up a 6th-round pick for. He's arguably a top 5, number 2 receiver. Jeremy Bernard taken in the 2nd round. Caden Wedgen taken in the 4th round. So nice depth to the receiver room. I may say this is the best receiver room in the NFL right now, but only time will tell. Tight end group, sneaky good group. Darnell Washington, who showed he can be more than a blocking tight end. Pat Freiermuth, who's always been Mr. Reliable since arriving in Pittsburgh. And Robert Tonyan, who hasn't done much since his Green Bay days, but, they got him on the dollar, and I think he could be of service to them. To the offensive line, I'm really impressed with the rebuild. Broderick Jones hasn't turned into the guy that they would have liked him to, but Troy Fatanu has established himself as the left tackle there in Pittsburgh. Mason McCormick, who they drafted in the 4th round 2 years ago, has turned into quite the starting left guard. What a find for them. I mean, that's just been hit there. Zach Frazier out of West Virginia, who they took a couple seasons back, has turned into a reliable center for them. And Max Ionachor is someone who they plan on putting at right tackle. And then don't forget Jennings Dunker, who they took in the 3rd round. I think he's going to be a 6th lineman to start, but don't be surprised if he's a starter on that offensive line come season's end. But nice young foundation. Defensive front, top 10 defensive line, led by Cameron Hayward, as always, for the last 10-plus seasons. They've consistently invested in that unit. On the edge, T.J. Watt, still viewed as one of the league's best. Alex Highsmith, who has proven to be, a presence on the outside. Nick Herbig, who they just rewarded a big contract. He's locked up for another 4 years. And then you can't forget Jack Sawyer. I mean, who can forget him? Captain Jack. But one of the NFL's best combinations on the edge. At linebacker, Patrick Queen, Peyton Wilson, really solid linebacker room. Secondary, Joey Porter Jr., still needs an extension, but he's still the Steel City's number 1 DB. Still got Jalen Ramsey there, who's always playing at a high level. Jamal Dean, Jaquan Brisker, both great additions to that secondary. Deshaun Elliott, who's recovering from an injury. He's a proven enforcer, but, I mean, he's excellent when healthy, but plenty of talent to guard the end zone. Final thoughts, though. Another winning season for the Steelers. I just think they missed the postseason with a 9-8 record. But again, good team. They need to find life after Rodgers. And last but not least, the Cleveland Browns. I think Cleveland. I know that they're in a transition period. That's clear. Some exciting young talent on paper, and only time will tell. I think Andrew Berry had another solid and good draft. I gave them an A- this year. But there's still too many unanswered questions. Todd Monken returns to Cleveland, this time as the head coach and not the OC. I still don't think he was Andrew Berry's top choice, but he's a guy that wanted to be here. But let's see if he can fix the quarterback problem. But I mean, that's the main thing. Quarterback. What happens? What happens with Deshaun Watson? Is Shedeur Sanders the future? By far the biggest question on the roster. The running game, Quinshon Judkins should immediately help. He is expected to be ready by week 1. Got Dylan Sampson, Raheem Rocket Sanders. So nice complimentary backs there. At wide receiver, I still question the Casey Concepcion pick, but overall, I like that they're adding. I like that Andrew Berry was adding. Also got Denzel Boston, who they added in the second round. Tylan Wallace, who was brought in via free agency, as one of Monken's guys from Baltimore. But let's see, and then let's see if Jerry Jeudy, what he could do. I think his time in Cleveland is coming to an end, but for the time being, he's still on the roster, and maybe these other pieces, all these other pieces can help him out. But definitely a better receiver room than last year. At tight end, you lose David Njoku, who signed with the Chargers, but Harold Fannin Jr., I already have him as a top 10 potential type of tight end, and I think he just follows up his rookie season with another solid season. Offensive line, they invested heavily in this group, over $100 million invested. They signed Zion Johnson, Elgton Jenkins via free agency. Also brought back Tevin Jenkins for $3 million. Traded for Titus Howard, rewarded him with an extension. So lots of investment there. The whole line is revamped. There might be 5 brand new starters on this offensive line. Spencer Fano, first offensive lineman taken in the draft. I thought that was a nice pick. I thought it was a safe pick. Also added Austin Barber in the 3rd round out of Florida. Nice value pick there. Parker Brailsford, they took in the 4th round out of Alabama. Don't be surprised if he's a surprise starter at center. I'm being honest there. Don't be surprised at all. But building the trenches there in Cleveland. On the defensive line, losing Myles Garrett, I mean, that changes everything. I actually originally had the Browns 9-8 before that trade because a lot of those, 2 of those wins, I shouldn't say a lot, 2 of those wins from last year were on account of Myles Garrett's, amazing, outstanding play. So I actually docked them 2 wins this year because of that trade. But they bring in Jared Verse. Obviously, he's not Myles Garrett. And I think that would be unfair to say that he's Myles Garrett or could replace him. But he's someone you could build around. Also, if Malik Willis isn't healthy, which it isn't looking like week 1, Mason Graham, who they took 5th overall last year, he's got to step it up. He had a good year last year, but also I think Myles Garrett helped that out. I think Myles Garrett helped that whole defensive line out, but he's really got to step up this year. I'm still also waiting to see what Michael Hall Jr. can do. He's got to, he had the problems going on his rookie year. Last year, he couldn't really stay healthy. He's got to step it up, or he's not even going to have a spot on this roster. The linebacker, you got Carson Schlesinger, who's leading that defensive group, reigning defensive rookie of the year. He's the leader of that defense now. Quincy Williams, a nice addition, to that linebacker room. They got him in free agency from the Jets. I actually like this group a lot, though. In the secondary, looks solid on paper. You got Denzel Ward, Tyson Campbell, Grant Delpit, Ronnie Hickman. They did decide to move on from MJ Emerson. But they do need to start looking at life after Denzel Ward. They're going to have to, figure out what to do there. Emmanuel McNeil-Warren, who was a first-round talent, fell to them at 54. One of my favorite picks, a hybrid player. He actually reminds me a lot of Jeremiah Wusu-Koramoah, which was a huge loss, which God bless him. It's not looking like he's ever going to, suit up for the Browns or in the NFL again. But his health is number 1 right now. But yeah, McNeil-Warren, I think they plan on using him as a similar way that they use JOK. Final thoughts, though, Cleveland's obviously still, they're rebuilding. They're building for the future. They got to figure out quarterback. Obviously, I don't think this is their year. So I think they finished 7-10. Like I said, originally I had them at 9-8. That was before the Garrett trade. But I got them 7-10 and missing the playoffs. All right, to the AFC East we go. Buffalo Bills, my top choice in the AFC East this year. Big picture, Joe Brady takes over for Sean McDermott. Josh Allen, he's entering year 9, captaining the ship in Buffalo. Still one of my favorites in the AFC. Roster is balanced from top to bottom. I mean, this feels like the year they can finally get over that, the AFC Championship hurdle. But yeah, Josh Allen, my NFL MVP pick this year after taking home honors 2 seasons ago. Once again, one of the best quarterbacks, entering the season. At running back, one of the best running back rooms in football, James Cook, Ty Johnson, Ray Davis. Cook is a top 10 back, arguably a top 5. He was a rushing leader last season. At receiver, big additions there. DJ Moore, Khalil Shakur. He's shown what he can do. Keon Coleman needs to take a year 3 leap here, but much deeper receiving corps there. Tight end, you got Dalton Kincaid, Dawson Knox, one of the better tight end duos in the NFL. Offensive line, Buffalo, they just do a phenomenal job building this unit. Consistently top 10. You got Deion Dawkins, elite blindside protector for Allen. They hit on Spencer Brown back when they took him in the 3rd round of the 2021 draft, and they're still adding depth. I love the Jude Bowery selection in the 4th round this year. I think they could find playing time for him this year. The defensive line, middle of the pack. They did add Bradley Chubb, added another pass rusher in him. So it should help improve the rotation. At linebacker is probably my biggest concern on defense. No more Matt Milano, so still have some questions there. Secondary, lost some talent. They did add D. Alford, C.J. Gardner-Johnson, and Geno Stone via free agency. Took Davison Igminosum in the 2nd round, nabbed Jalen Kilgore in the 5th round. But Buffalo, they continue to draft and develop these defensive backs very, extremely well. Final thoughts, complete football team. I think they're good enough to win AFC. I just think they fall short in the big game. But yeah, I got them going 12-5 this year. AFC East champs, as well as AFC champs, but I think they fall in the Super Bowl this year. To the New England Patriots, big picture, the Patriots are back. Not quite contenders, but definitely back in the playoffs. Drake May, NFL MVP runner-up a season ago, already led New England to a Super Bowl in the 2nd season. Still not ready to call him a top 10 quarterback yet. Ask me again at the end of the season. He did lead the NFL in QBR last year, but it's safe to say that the Pats found their next franchise quarterback for the next 10 plus years. Running game, excellent 1-2 punch with Trevion Henderson and Ramondre Stevenson. Should take pressure off May. At receiver, lost Stephon Diggs, brought in A.J. Brown. Hopefully he left the drama in Philadelphia. I know New England was supposedly the place where he wanted to be. They also had Romeo Dubes, but much better receiving room here. Tight end group, solid group, nothing flashy, but dependable. Offensive line, they had to improve since last season. That was clear. Drake May was sacked 47 times and 21 times in the playoffs. I can't believe they made it to the Super Bowl with that. I still believe in Will Campbell. They added Elijah Vera Tucker via free agency, drafted Caleb Lomu in the 1st round, and then they found Demetrius Crownover in the 6th round. So much better depth there. I think the offensive line improves with these additions here. To the defensive side, defensive line, lost some pieces, added Draymond Jones in free agency, drafted Gabe Jacas, who I thought was a hell of a pick at 55. Nice job replacing the departures, though. At linebacker, didn't make many moves, didn't really need to. Already a solid group. Secondary, Christian Gonzalez, who's already due for a lucrative contract. He was one of the players who held his own in the Super Bowl. He was a bright spot in the defense for New England. Arguably a top 5 corner. I think he's a top 5 corner at least. Kevin Byard was a sneaky good addition. Still underrated, even though he's a 2-time interception leader and 3-time All-Pro. Final thoughts. This team isn't winning the division, but they're definitely back in the playoffs. Unfortunately, I don't think they get past the wild card round. So I got them going 10-7 and losing in the wild card round. The New York Jets. This is a rebuild, plain and simple. Some nice young pieces. Still searching for that franchise quarterback, though. They bring in Geno Smith, nice bridge quarterback. Not the long-term answer, though. Running game, Breece Hall recently extended. Still the face of that offense. Braylon Allen, developing into a quality 3rd down back. At receiver, you got Garrett Wilson, still a Pro Bowl receiver. Question is, will he still be a Jet by season's end? So I think it all depends on how it goes. If he lets his emotions get the best of him and he's kind of trying to force his way out. But we'll see. Like the Omar Cooper Jr. pick at 30. He reminds me so much of Jarvis Landry. So nice addition to that receiver room. At tight end, I actually like this room. Mason Taylor, Jeremy Ruckert, and then Kenyon Sadiq falls them at 16 this year. So he'll be heavily involved in that offense right away as a rookie. But underrated group. I mean, definitely an underrated group. Offensive line, middle of the pack last season, could become a strength. Olu Fashanu, excellent pick 2 seasons ago. Armand Membo was an absolute home run selection last year. Now, find a quarterback. You got the guys to protect. You get the assets to protect. That's all you got to do. Defensive line, going to the defensive side of things, the defensive line needed more help to replace Quinnen Williams, who they traded last year. Him not being on the D line, being traded last year, it really did show. They had David Bailey. They take him second overall. I think he had some pressure in a big way. Excited to see what he can do. Good addition to that line, though. At linebacker, Quincy Williams leaves to Cleveland. Demario Davis arrives. This is his third stint with the Jets. Veteran leadership despite being 37, but he still plays at a high level, and I think he's a perfect guy to lead that young group there in New York. Secondary, again, Sauce Gardner was another defensive player that they was traded in the middle of the season last year. Hard to replace him, but they needed reinforcements. Traded for Minka Fitzpatrick. Huge upgrade at the safety position. Also added D'Angelo Pons in the second round. I think he's a plug-and-play player at the nickel to start. But I think he's got, despite being 5'9", I think he's got a bright future in the NFL. Final thoughts, though. I actually like this offseason. I had a good grade on the Jets. I believe I gave them an A this year. Just don't expect immediate results for the Gang Green. They're building for the future, definitely. But I got them finishing 4-13 and missing the playoffs this year. And then the Miami Dolphins. It's going to be a long season for the Dolphins. In my opinion, this is the worst team in the NFL. Roster still has some bright spots, but too many holes everywhere else. I'm not sure about the Jeff Hafley hire, but I'll judge it, after I see what he can do. Quarterback Malik Willis earned this opportunity. Now let's see if he belongs in the NFL as a starter. Problem is, not much around him. Devon Achane just got paid this offseason, making him one of the highest paid backs. Wants a complimentary piece. Now he is the offense. He's a top 10 running back. At receiver, they heavily invested in the position group. They brought in Tutu Atwell, Jalen Tolbert. They didn't really fork up the cash. They're not exactly game changers to me. They did draft Caleb Douglas and Chris Bell in the third round, as well as Kevin Coleman Jr. in the fifth. Chris Bell, I think he's an absolute steal at 94. To me, he had second-round pick potential. But this group just doesn't move the needle for me. One of the worst groups in the NFL right now. But they're young; they can develop. But right now, I'm not really sure who's the number one receiver for them. Tight end needs more production. Not a position group that does it for me. Offensive line needed major help. Ranked towards the bottom last year. Aaron Brewer was rewarded with a contract. He's become one of the better centers in the NFL. Drafted Caden Proctor with the first of their first-round selections. I'm much higher on Caden Proctor than a lot of people, but I think he's going to be really good in the NFL, whether he plays tackle or guard. It's looking like he's going to probably slide into left guard to start, but I'm very high on him. I'm really excited to see what he can do in Miami. To the defensive side, defensive line, dead last in football. Still, there's some upside. Zach Sealer's there, Chop Robinson, Kenneth Grant. Those are some guys that they took in the first round. They've invested. But it's time to see what those first-round picks can do. The linebacker looked desperate last season. They did re-sign Jordan Brooks, who's turned into one of the premier linebackers in the NFL. Added Jacob Rodriguez in the second round, who's another rookie I'm high on. Also, I added Kyle Lewis out of Pittsburgh in the fourth round. So it should be an improved group. Should be a much improved linebacker room. The secondary, one of the weakest groups in the NFL. You can see the trend here. Chris Johnson was a needed first-round addition. They took him with the second of their first-round picks, but still a long way to go. Final thoughts, too many holes. Clearly rebuilding. This feels like one of the worst teams in the NFL. Like I said, I think they are the worst, but it's going to be a long season for the Fins. I got them finishing 2-15 and missing the playoffs. All right, to the AFC South. I got the Houston Texans finishing atop of this division this year. Big picture, C.J. Stroud, I think he bounces back, returns to rookie year form. Remember, they've had 3 straight winning seasons with Stroud under center. This is a complete football team. Yeah, quarterback, Stroud, expecting a big bounce back, much better protection this season for him. He's still one of the better young quarterbacks in football right now. The running game, Woody Marks returns. They trade for David Montgomery with Detroit. Really solid running back room, but keep an eye on Noah Whittington, undrafted. I think he could be this year's Jalil McLaughlin, though. I really think that I think he ends up making the team, and I think he ends up being, I'm not saying he's gonna be like a big impact player on that offense, but you're gonna hear his name this year. At receiver, much improved group. Nico Collins remains the number one target, but you got Jaden Higgins, Jalen Noel, Tank Dell comes back after missing all of last season with an injury, but much improved group. And I think that they really got a nice solid foundation there in that receiver room. At tight end, one of the better tight end rooms, you got Dalton Schultz, Foster Moreau, Kate Stover, and then you got Marlon Klein now, who they took in the second round. I thought that was a little high for Klein, but they're investing. They want targets. They need block. He's a good blocking tight end. But yeah, it's a nice solid tight end room there in Houston. The offensive line can only improve from last season. They used a first round pick, added Kalen Rutledge out of Georgia Tech. I really liked him. I thought the first round was a little high for him, but I had him as an early second rounder. So he's going to be a plug and play there. Looks like he might be at center. He's another versatile lineman. Could either play center or guard, but looks like he'll be playing center to start. Signed Braden Smith and Wyatt Teller via free agency. They should be filling in as starters on that line. So Stroud should definitely have much better protection this year. Flipping to the defensive side of things, defensive line's one of the NFL's best, probably second to the Rams. Got Will Anderson Jr., Daniil Hunter, and then you got Caden McDonald, who fell to them in the second round. I thought he was the best defensive tackle in the whole entire draft, but he strengthens the interior there. Linebacker group, solid group, no major concerns there. Secondary, very underrated. Definitely a top five secondary. Derek Stingley Jr., he's proven to be an elite corner. Jalen Petrie, quietly becoming one of NFL's best safeties. Final thoughts, though, complete roster. Defense should carry this team. Also, Stroud bounces back, like I said. I think the Texans win the AFC South this year with a 10-7 record. But yeah, AFC South champs, but I think they lose in the wild card round this year. And then we got the Jacksonville Jaguars. The big picture, Trevor Lawrence continues to play well. Winning record for them this year, but not a playoff team. Not buying stock in another 13-win season. Not to knock them, I think they got tremendously lucky last year. I think they had a lot of guys just step up. But yeah, Trevor Lawrence, though, at least at quarterback, last season he showed why he was a number one overall pick. So expect another solid season from him, though. Running game isn't my biggest concern. I think it could be the worst room in all of football. I mean, who's the starter? Bashul Tootin is a Chris Rodriguez Jr., who they brought in from the Commanders. There's just too many questions to me. Receiver, it's a solid group. I think Brian Thomas Jr., I expect him to have a better season. Jacoby Myers, who they just paid. And then Parker Washington, who's been a surprise on that offense as well. But yeah, nice room. Tight end doesn't move the needle for me. Offensive line, they're still trying to fix it. They needed some improvements. They've needed improvements for years. They have invested in the past on that line. It just hasn't come to fruition. I did love they did draft Emmanuel Pregnon this year. I love that selection. I thought that was a good pick in the third round. I think he's a future NFL starter. On the defensive line, best part of the defense. You got Josh Allen Hines, Travon Walker, Eric Armstead still effective. That's a dangerous front there in the Jacksonville. Linebacker, losing Devin Lloyd, the Carolina hurts. But they still have a tackling machine in Vasade Olokun. Really good tackle, really good linebacker there. He just gets the job done, consistently racking up tackles year after year. Secondary needs to improve. They struggled last season. Can Travis Hunter primarily playing corner help? Maybe. That's a possibility. But yeah, end of the day, winning football team, not quite good enough. I think they missed the playoffs, but I think they have a winning record with a 9-8 record. To the Indianapolis Colts. Big picture, I'm not very high on Indianapolis. I think they're an average football team. Not a rebuild, just not a playoff roster. At quarterback, Anthony Richardson still there on the roster. He's still hanging around, but this is clearly Daniel Jones' team. I think that's officially his team. They made it abundant last year, but need more consistency. I know Jones got hurt, but he's healthy this year, so we'll see. I'm not sure if he's the long-term answer there, but he's the QB1 right now out there for the Colts. Running back, Jonathan Taylor. Keeps making a case why he's the best running back in football. Had almost 2,000 scrimmage yards last year, 20 total touchdowns. A top running back in football conversation. Receiver, I'm not crazy about this room. I mean, Alec Pierce, was he worth that money? I mean, we'll see. At tight end, Tyler Warren. I think we're expecting another Pro Bowl caliber season from him, but he's a big piece of that offense moving forward. He reminds me so much of Dallas Clark. Offensive line, consistently solid. I mean, they did lose Braden Smith, Houston this year in free agency, but it's still led by Quentin Nelson, who's an all-pro guard, future Hall of Famer. So, I mean, no concerns there on the offensive line, despite missing pieces. Defensive line, going to the defensive side, solid enough. Latu continues improving. At linebacker, this is an average group. I need more playmakers, though. C.J. Allen, who I really liked coming out of the draft, he fell to them in the second round. I think he ends up leading that defense this year. Secondary, that's the strength of that defense. They gave up 2 first-round picks for Sauce Gardner last season, but he's a top 5 corner in the league, so you get what you pay for. But also on the opposite of him, Travaris Ward, excellent corner duo. That'd be enough for me to sleep as a defensive coordinator. So, I mean, solid secondary there in Indianapolis. Final thoughts, though. Competitive team, not rebuilding at all. Just not enough talent to reach the postseason. So I got them missing the playoffs with a 7-10 record this year. And then rounding out the AFC South, I got the Tennessee Titans. Slight improvement from last year, still rebuilding, not ready to compete. Robert Saleh was brought in. Things didn't work out in New York with the Jets, but we'll see how it works out here in Tennessee. Brian Dable, that's who I'm really excited to see what he can do. He's proven to be a effective play caller, so I'm excited to see what he can do as the OC there in Tennessee. With that being said, I think this offense looks good. Definitely looks better. Cam Ward at quarterback, he showed flashes last year. I still have questions whether he's a starter in the league. Too early to judge, though. Yeah, definitely too early to judge after one season. Running game, you got Tony Pollard, Tajay Spears, Michael Carter, and they added Nicholas Singleton in the draft. Solid depth there at the running back room. I like this group. At receiver, Calvin Ridley returns. Signed Windell Robinson, who's coming off his best season in the NFL. And then they drafted Carnell Tate with the number 4 overall pick. So plenty of weapons there for Cam Ward to succeed. Tight end room, average room. Added some depth. Nothing special there. Offensive line, still disappointing. They spent plenty of money. It just hasn't developed. Dan Moore Jr., who was there in Pittsburgh, they gave him a boatload of money. He struggled big time in his first year there with the Titans. J.C. Latham, he needs fewer penalties. Peter Skoronski, he looks to be a bright spot on that offensive line, so that looks to be a hit. They did sign Austin Schlottman and Cordell Volson via free agency. So, I mean, willing to spend money isn't the problem, but they got to play better this year. They got to protect Cam Ward. They got to protect that asset. To the defensive side, defensive line, average last season, much improved. Jeffrey Simmons, top 5 interior defensive lineman, arguably the best defensive tackle in football. They extended him this offseason. He earned that contract. Signed Jermaine Johnson. They gave him a lot of money. They also signed Jordan Elliott as well. Used their other first-round pick on Keldrick Falk, who I think adds pressure on the outside there. At linebacker, Anthony Hill Jr. snagged him in the second round. Loved him coming out of college. I thought he was awesome in college at Texas. He'll be heading that defense his rookie season. But outside him, the linebacker room really doesn't do much for me. So not much excitement there. Secondary, added some pieces. Still one of the weaker groups in the division. But final thoughts, better than last year. They're still rebuilding. I think they just need another offseason to really, make that push and, to be ready to compete. So I have them missing the playoffs this year, and I got them finishing 5-12. All right, now we go to the AFC West. The lead off the AFC West, I got the Kansas City Chiefs returning to form. I think they're back to looking like the playoff-bound Kansas City Chief football. Back to looking like playoff-bound Kansas City Chiefs. Patrick Mahomes bounced back season after last season. He's also he's hitting all his rehab checkpoints. I still think he's the best quarterback in football. So serious Super Bowl contender. But yeah, Patrick Mahomes, first losing season in his career last year, set to return week 1 after hitting all of his rehab checkpoints. But yeah, I expect a huge bounce back season from him. Running game, I mean, They had Kareem Hunt last year and Isaiah Pacheco. Both of them are gone. But what do? They end up going out spending money. They have Super Bowl MVP Kenneth Walker III. Big upgrade at running back. So it should help take some pressure off Mahomes. At receiver, Rashee Rice, he has the talent to excel if he stays out of trouble. Xavier Worthy, he continues to develop there, and he looks to be an asset on that offense. Both reliable weapons for Mahomes if they're on the field. I think they could use maybe like one other guy. I know Tyreek Hill's been linked there. I know he's still rehabbing that left leg, but we'll see. I mean, they could probably use one more nice, one more piece. Still, like I say, still got Stephon Diggs out there. We'll see though. At tight end, got Travis Kelce. He turns 37 in October. No longer a top 5 tight end, but he still hasn't shown much signs of decline. And I think he still continues to play at a high level. Offensive line looks very healthy. Creed Humphrey, arguably the best center in all football. Trey Smith has become one of the league's best guards. Josh Simmons has been an excellent pass protector at left tackle. Going to the defensive side, on the defensive line, Chris Jones still leads the way. Remains one of the better defensive lines in football. Linebacker, you got Nick Bolton, Drew Tranquill, top 10 linebacker room. The secondary, this is my biggest concern on the whole entire roster. The trade of Trent McDuffie away to the Rams. Also lost Jalen Watson, who also ended up signing with the Rams. But then you also lost Brian Cook to the Cincinnati Bengals in free agency. But then with that, with their first round pick, one of them, they drafted Mansour Delani, who is my number 1 corner in the entire draft. He may not live up to the hype of McDuffie at first, but he's somebody to start with. The final thoughts: Mahomes returns MVP form. Chiefs return to the AFC Championship game, but I got them falling short. So I got the Chiefs, finishing with 11-6 record this year, AFC West champs, but falling short to Buffalo in the AFC Championship game. Going over Denver Broncos, who ended up winning the AFC West last year. I don't have them repeat champs in the AFC West, but they're still a playoff team to me. I still think they're one of the better rosters in the conference. At quarterback, I think Bo Nix has proven that he's the real deal. He should be ready for week 1 after his playoff injury. He's trending to become he's trending towards being a franchise quarterback. The running game, you got J.K. Dobbins, as long as he can stay healthy. R.J. Harvey, who was a second rounder last year, and then Jonah Coleman, who they took this year, adds depth to that running back room. So plenty of depth. Coleman should earn some solid workload his rookie season. At receiver, Cortland Sutton, Troy Franklin, Marvin Mims Jr., Pat Bryant. They just added Jalen Waddle via trade with the Dolphins. One of the deepest receiver rooms in all of football. Offensive line, one of the league's best, quite possibly the best. You got Garrett Bowles, Quinn Minards, big strength of that offense. The defensive side, on the defensive line, they did lose John Franklin Myers, the free agency. But still one of the better defensive fronts. Zach Allen continues to dominate. On the edge, you got Nick Bonito. He's becoming a top 10 edge rusher. Jonathan Cooper needs to stay out of trouble, but great pass rushing duo there. At linebacker, Alex Singleton, still underrated to me. Secondary, one of the NFL's best. They got Patrick Surtain II. He's by far, at least to me, he's the best cornerback in all of football right now. Final thoughts, easily a playoff team. I think they got a wild card berth. I think they just fall short of the AFC Championship game this year, though. So I got them finishing 10-7 and losing in the divisional round. To the Los Angeles Chargers. Big picture, better than the record suggests. My biggest concern is health. If healthy, they can compete. At quarterback, Justin Herbert, proven top 10 quarterback. Running game, Omarion Hampton takes over. I'm really excited to see what he can do as the premier back there with the Chargers. At receiver, Ladd McConkey continues to develop. Quinn Johnston seems to embrace that receiver 2 role. Better receiver room than previous years. At tight end, Rondé Gadsden II. He's become tight end 1. Another reminder why late round picks matter. But they also added David Njoku and Charlie Kolar in the free agency. So that adds experience and depth in the tight end room. Offensive line, this line can be one of the NFL's best if they're healthy. So health is everything, though. Rashawn Slater and Joe Alt, both tackles, they're both returning from injury. Added Tyler Biadasz and Cole Strange in free agency. And they also drafted Jake Slaughter in the second round. He's expected to move from center to guard. So, I mean, this is another one. Just like the Browns, they've really revamped this offensive line. But yeah, when healthy, they are intimidating. They could be one of the NFL's best. To the defensive line still has some questions. Khalil Mack, he still remains productive. Tuli too, looks like the real deal. He looks like a hit. Used the first round selection on Akeem Mesidor. So I do like the defensive line. But there are some questions still. At linebacker, Dayon Henley, tackling machine, but outside of him, there's not much excitement. Secondary, middle of the pack. Derwin James, he remains the X factor on that defense. But other than him, just doesn't really move the needle for me. But yeah, final thoughts. Talented football team. Injuries held them back, for the last couple of seasons. Might not be the case this season. I just think that Kansas City and Denver runs the West this year. So I got the Chargers finishing 8-9 and missing the playoffs this year. And then we go over to the silver and black. Las Vegas Raiders. Spent over $300 million in free agency. Around 165 of that was on the defense. They drafted well. I gave them a B+ in the draft this year. They are heading in the right direction, but they're still rebuilding. Clint Kubiak takes over, Super Bowl winning offensive coordinator. Smart move sticking to offensive-minded coach, I think, for this group. I think that was smart. I think Kubiak fits perfect with this group. Fernando Mendoza, he is the future. He's expected to sit this season, though. So Kirk Cousins starts year one. Ideal bridge quarterback there. Running game, I am buying stock in Ashton Gente. Offensive line improves. The offensive line improvement should help there. Expect a productive second season from him. A receiver, this is my biggest concern here. Trey Tucker is coming off his best season. I'm not sold on Jack Beck as a wide receiver too, though. I mean, they need to improve here. I know they spend more than $300 million in free agency. They did bring in Jalen Naylor via free agency. He doesn't get me excited. But maybe they add a Stephon Diggs or Tyreek Hill, towards the end of training camp or after training camp ends. Maybe they prove me wrong, though. But I think this position group needs help. At tight end, Brock Bowers. I know he was banged up a little bit last year, but he's already a top 5 tight end. Michael Mayer, I'm still buying stock in him. I think he's one of the NFL's best backup tight ends. I think he's finally being utilized well. I think on a handful of teams, he could be a tight end 1. Offensive line, much improved. Colton Miller still protecting the blind side. Signed Tyler Linderbaum in free agency. He was the top offensive lineman all free agency. They also signed Spencer Burford in free agency. Trey Zoon III fell to them in round 3. I thought he was the most versatile offensive lineman. I mean, whether he's used as a 6th lineman this year or not, I think they find a spot for him, and I think he'll be a starter sooner than later. Going to the defensive side, defensive line, below average, Max Crosby, he continues to lead that group. He continues to carry that group. But outside of him, it doesn't do much for me. At linebacker, completely revamped the whole room. Kobe Dean, Quay Walker, Kwity Paye, all signed in free agency. One of the league's biggest improvements there. Secondary, one of the league's worst. Signed Teron Johnson from Buffalo, but they did take 4 DBs in the draft, including Traden Stukes and Jermon McCoy. Stukes will be an instant factor. Despite being 4th-round pick, Jermon McCoy, he's got first-round talent. He was hurt. That his injury affected his draft stock, but I think he's awesome. I think that was a great pick there with the first pick in the 4th round, but much needed depth there in the secondary. Final thoughts. I think they finished last in the AFC West. Clear direction for the franchise, though. Winning football isn't far away for the Silver and Black. Another offseason away from competing, but I got them finishing 6-11 and missing the playoffs this year. But that'll do it for episode 7 of Jay by the Bay. Thank you so much, guys. Seriously, the Jay Bayers, I love you guys so much. Thank you for tuning in. As always, if you love these episodes, if you love this podcast, please hit that subscribe. If you also didn't see the announcement, we're also on Spotify now. Blair, he'll be back on Monday for Monday's show for episode 8. I think you guys will really love that. If you guys enjoyed the graphics that are on today's show, I'll have those uploaded to the Instagram page, which you can also catch all my content there at Jay by the Bay. But yeah, love you guys so much. Seriously, thank you for tuning in. Until next time, just take care, guys. God bless.